Welcome to Dying to Know. Tonight we're going to be doing wet preservation, and I have the lovely Gavin joining us from Sydney. Ideally, we were actually going to be in Melbourne together, but with all the lockdowns and border closures and things only opening up, we've just decided to go a little bit remote, which has kind of changed things up a little bit because usually I would narrate, but I'm actually going to be doing the actions tonight while essentially Gavin puppeteers me, which will be interesting. We'll see how good I take direction. My name's Nat. I own Rest in Pieces. I've probably met a lot of you over the years, and if I haven't, then welcome. We started the Dying to Know series, I guess, as part of COVID and all the lockdowns, because RIP was essentially a workshop teaching company. So you'd come in on a weekend and we'd teach you taxidermy, skeletal articulation, things like that. And then I guess throughout COVID and having to diversify, we realized there's lots of other skills that we have and things that we do, like skull preservation and wet specimens, diaphanization, things like that, that maybe we can't really teach in a workshop environment because they might take a few weeks to do. And they're essentially a couple of steps, and then you sit back, relax, wait for a week, do a few more steps. And so we found that having this Dying to Know demonstration series has been really helpful to tap into some of the other skills that you might be interested to know when it comes to doing your own preservation at home. And when we do this style of teaching, and also when we create our books, our ebooks, we try to make it as tangible as possible and as appropriate as possible for what you can achieve at home. So for example, with tonight, when we're doing wet preservation, we're going to be teaching you skills that are viable and safe to do within your own home. Versus when we do our advanced wet preservation book and guide, we'll probably more be teaching you museum and university kind of level style wet preservation. So things will differ, but there's no point us teaching you things that are completely out of scope for what, maybe a hobbyist or someone who's interested in vulture culture might be able to do at home. So this has been a fun series to bring our other skills to life and to teach you things that you're interested about. If there are other things that you're dying to know, please drop them in the comments, because we're always writing books and trying to create content and run live series like we are today. Also, we are going to be doing a demonstration today, but if you want to ask any questions or drop any thoughts of ideas that you've got, please type it in the comments. And as we go, we'll respond to you, because we want this to be collaborative rather than you just listening to what we have to say. So thank you for joining us. And I want to welcome Gavin. Gavin joined the RIP team 3 years ago. Yeah. I stalked him. I was actually over in Los Angeles, and I've been working with my best friend Alice, doing some taxidermy over there. And then I found out about this guy who was doing corrosion casting and plastination as a side gig for, was it Body Worlds?
Yeah, it was Body Worlds, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys are kind of familiar with plastination and things like that. Gunther von Hagen is the poster boy for it. But I found out that Gavin lived in Sydney and was utilizing the techniques of Gunther von Hagen and doing corrosion casting and plastination, and was also running the veterinary science lab at the Sydney University, which has heaps of beautiful potted wet specimens. And it's just basically this gorgeous museum for learning. And I contacted Gavin and I was like, oh, I'm flying back from LA and I'm going to come to Sydney and see you. And I don't think you believed me. And I think I landed and then flew to see you and then begged you to work for me. Because Gavin's really unique in Australia, because they're skills that he has haven't really been taught here. And it was because of a mentor that you had in Otago in New Zealand. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And he took you on and he taught you about plastination and things like that. So it's really unique to have you in Australia teaching this. And it's really unique that then we can bring you into like essentially a small business and avoid all the red tape and teach this amazing stuff that you know. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what your like mentorship was in Ontario and like how that happened, Gavin?
Yeah, so I started in Otago early 2000s, and was given an opportunity to learn the art of plastination through somebody who'd been doing it for 20 odd years and trained and worked with Gunter von Hagens personally for 3 or 4 trips to Germany, and had considerable experience and was part of that forefront or the frontier of it being developed and rolled out to universities. Widely considered as probably one of the gurus in plastination for his time. So I was exceptionally lucky to pick up all the skills that I've developed over my time there. And 5 years, I think, in that role, working alongside him, he retired. I ended up taking over the role and becoming the plastinator for the space at Otago Uni Med School. And then maybe a year and a half later, I actually was approached by Sydney Uni because they wanted those skills. And so they approached me and actually offered me a position at Sydney Uni Vet School. And it kind of, I've had been there up until very, very recently. So I'd been there for 13 years and heading their anatomy space, and then more recently moved on to managing the entire technical team across veterinary science course delivery. So you can imagine that's 4 years of a medicine, or basically an animal medicine program. So very diverse, very large group. So yeah, like I think I've been able to put my skills to good use there, and this capacity to jump on board with RIP was, a very easy decision for me, because it's, you're embedded and buried in the university world. I'd love to share these skills and knowledge, and make them. Is some of it is there is things like what we're going to talk tonight that absolutely you can do at home. And some of the more advanced stuff, I think, with skills and practice, you can definitely develop those skills to deliver it. And, the plastination process probably isn't something you can do at home, but the corrosion casting side arm of that is absolutely something that has blended itself very well to being an amazing.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, we run workshops on that. And eventually we might even look into like doing a book and something like this on it. Yeah. It is a little bit trickier. Like it is good with that one to do the hands-on workshop, but it's not impossible. And I think that that's what I love that you brought to the table. Like I know for myself with Gunter von Hagen's work, it just never occurred to me in a million years that that would be something that someone like me who didn't finish high school could be like learning, doing, teaching.
Yeah.
It's just so cool that you can even do that at home. So we really want to bring that approach to, I guess, these sessions and to what we do at RIP. Also, Gavin, I didn't know that your mentor worked directly with Gunter. That's really cool.
Yeah. So he three-week workshops over a period of 6 years with him.
Yeah, that's really cool. Before we jump in, I'm going to get into the history of wet preservation, which is what you guys are all here for. But I'd love to know like what your interest is and what brought you here. Like, why do you want to know about wet preservation? Is this your first time with us? Have you attended other dying to knows or workshops? Like, what is it that draws you to, the preservation of animals and the dying arts? Because I often find that it can be quite a lonely space. And when you tell friends that you're interested in this sort of stuff, they find it odd and they don't quite get it. So if you feel like it, it'd be cool if you just put in the comments, because we can't hear you speaking and it's just me and Gavin basically hanging out. But it'd be cool just to hear like what you're doing here and like what your interest is. And while you perhaps put those comments in, I will talk a little bit to wet preservation. So essentially it came about in the 1600s, and we need to like look back into time, when we're thinking about explorers like roaming the world and you know, collecting specimens and information and what that's done for scientific study and the ways that specimens might like to be preserved. So taxidermy means the arrangement of skin, taxi means arrange, dermy means skin. You look at wet preservation. So could you put something in a jar and preserve it and collect data from it? So data is just another word for like being able to collect scientific knowledge from it at a later point in time for study and research. Could be corrosion casting or plastination, like how do we inject things into the anatomy or the arteries and visually see what happens on the inside or even get a replica of that. So a lot of this stuff kind of did happen, you know, really early on prior to the 18th century. And then over, you know, the hundreds of years has evolved into now a tangible thing that we can do at home. And I guess that's maybe where the idea of vulture culture comes from, because I don't know, I just sat at home and started doing this stuff too before I started RIP. Um, so there is some sort of interest. And, you know, if you go into a museum or a curiosity shop, wet preservation exists and it's beautiful. And I find if you follow us, we do pet preservation and, you know, all kinds of things. You name it, we're basically in it now. But there's something beautiful about wet preservation and the stillness, or like you're not replicating the animal for what it was, you're simply preserving it in its state. Probably a really good example of that, if I can show the camera, is this guy. So this is actually a monkey that one of my mentors donated to me, and from a zoo that closed down. And I would never, ever trust myself to do taxidermy on a specimen like this. I just don't think that I could do it justice. But when it's wet preserved, I just think it's beautiful to be able to like capture that moment in time and capture that specimen. And I think that that's something that wet preservation can do that maybe other techniques of preservation simply can't do. So we've got some answers there. Gavin, do you want to read some of them out just so we can see how people started and what they like?
Yeah, so there's been a couple of comments here. I guess some people, you know, want to work out how to expand their dry methods into wet preservation. Someone from Dublin Vet School, so that's Catherine.
Oh, hey, Catherine, we finally meet. Is it like 3 a.m. in Dublin right now?
Yeah, so apparently, Nat, you held the monkey off screen.
Yeah, I'm doing that, fixing it.
Yep, so others have got a family history, or ex-father-in-law was involved in taxidermy and entomology, and that's developed that curiosity. Others have done a few classes and they really want to try and develop their skills in this area. So that's pretty cool. Yep. It's 8 a.m. in Dublin, apparently. So perfect timing, really.
Great timing.
Yeah. So yeah, others have done other classes or attended other Dying to Know workshops. And again, more taxidermy interest. And yeah, they're basically saying this is the first time we ever got the opportunity to learn it.
Yeah.
And then the last one is someone's studying glass blowing, which is unique. And love the combination of science and art, and what a beautiful way to produce your own glass specimen or glass display for a specimen. That'd be pretty amazing.
It's so, you know, that really speaks to me. I did a piece with Gerard and we competed in the Australian Taxidermy Championships maybe 4 years ago. And we actually did a piece, it was a skeletal cat with a glass blown womb. And then we had 3 floating kittens inside the womb. And that was really cool. So we actually got to like hand blow that. So I love the idea of glass blowing with wet preservation. I think it's really cool. They kind of go hand in hand. The other thing that seems to go hand in hand is what do you call it? Like when you do the windows, like stained glass windows. what's the word for that? Is there a word for that? A lot of people seem to be combining animal preservation in that at the moment. Robin, like
Yeah.
in Sydney, a lot of people are adding wings to specimens and stuff like that. I think that that is really cool.
Yeah.
So there's some of that going on. It does, these dying arts and I guess artisan trades and things like that, they tend to go hand in hand. So it's really cool to have such a diverse group here. So we might jump in. Gavin, if you want to take us
Sure.
through, I guess, the start of like what we're going to be doing, PPE, decontamination, and also just the way that we're going to do it here, because there is no way that I'm wearing a mask for the next 2 hours. One, because I talk too much, but two, because I have mask phobia after being in lockdown for 262 days. So there's no way I'm wearing a mask all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think thanks for that. Look, I think PPE or personal protective equipment is absolutely critical. So we are going to be talking about the use of formaldehyde or formalin, and as our main initial preservation solution. I personally wouldn't advocate using just straight isopropyl alcohol, as others have sort of made available on the web. I don't agree with that as a process. It doesn't do the true job that formaldehyde does.
Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't fix your specimen. We tried that with some other specimens. So fixing means like literally preserving and locking in that specimen so that it won't break down. Formalin is what is also used, or formaldehyde is what is used for embalming in a funeral home. So you have to preserve the tissue. Simply injecting with an alcohol is drying it out. It is not changing that tissue in any way, shape, or form, or preserving it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key thing with formalin is it's a non-carcinogen. And it's really, really important that we apply the appropriate levels of control. So protective equipment. So we've got a breathing mask, which Nat has got in front of her. So it's really important that when you get the correct breathing mask, you don't just get one that's for a spray painter. You get one that's designed for organic vapors, which formaldehyde is. And 3M make one, and they sell one. I think from memory, they've got a brown band around the mask, around the filter itself. And that indicates what it's useful for. So just be really careful about getting the correct mask. And really importantly, they come in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large. Ideally, you want to try and make sure you get the best possible fit with a mask. Sometimes you might need to buy a few different masks. The question here, is there a code for that mask? So if you search for a 3M half mask, it should provide some options about what you can get. And I know it's not ideal to buy one. I would suggest, if you've got a very small face or an Asian sort of very small features, consider a small mask, and then medium would fit most people, unless you're a larger person. Not many people fit a large face mask in my experience.
No, I don't see many students that do. You gotta have a massive head for that. Medium and small seems to be good.
Yeah.
The other thing I found, Gavin, so you can get these, and so I just want to check that everyone's got the right setting, that what they can see on their screen right now is Gavin and I. So you should be able to see the hosts rather than the whole group, just in case you guys are having viewing issues. So with these masks, they're available at Bunnings. You can just get a simple Bunnings purchase. The thing that I found recently is you can actually look up online for formalin protective filters. And actually, if you Google that, that will come up as well, because there have been times, I think even you came to the studio once, Gavin, and you're like, that's a spray paint filter. That's not going to work. And I'm like, oh, God, that's why it feels like I'm dying all the time. So I actually found out you can literally Google the filter, and these just clip on and off of your mask. So you can get the right filter to protect yourself. And guys, formalin's no joke. Like, I don't think that I fully understood. Yes, I know it's a carcinogenic, but I don't think that I fully understood how painful it is. It will like sting your eyes beyond belief and make you not be able to breathe and burn your nose. It burns you, and not in a chopping an onion kind of way. It is really unsafe. And when you wear a mask like this and you have the right filters, you do sound like Darth Vader, but you will be protected.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think masks are your number one defense for PPE. So I think Catherine's just put a comment in there, making sure you get the appropriate replacement filter as well.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to jump in for 1 second. Love Berry just said, is the RIP face cam working? Can you guys see me in general? I can't see you. Just say yes or no. There might be a setting. Maybe you can go to like group view or spotlight, or what's the option that people need to choose to see us properly?
Speaker.
Oh, no, there's no hands right now. It's just my face. Hands are coming soon. You just get to look at my lovely face with the mask right now. Hands are coming soon.
Yeah. Comment about Star Wars and sounding like Darth Vader is completely fine. So I guess, you know, breathing masks is one thing. We will also want to protect our eyes, because if you get formalin in your eyes, there is a risk you'll go blind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nasty stuff. So in a workplace environment, you would potentially be working in a fume hood, just for context. So it's a ventilated hood that's designed to carry the fumes away, so you can't get access to it. So it doesn't, you know, so you can't be exposed. But the other key thing is also we've got to protect our hands. We don't want to get formalin on our hands. And nitrile gloves, it's really important that nitrile gloves provide considerable protection compared to latex or vinyl. So nitrile gloves are a must.
And they come in cute black.
Yeah.
Super fun.
So I guess one of the key things that we also need to be aware of is that ventilation is a key component that's not PPE, but it is an absolute requirement. So if you're doing this at home, highly recommend you find wide open doors and open your windows and try and get some cross ventilation through your workspace. Or alternatively, if you have access to doing it outdoors, that's obviously a much better space again.
Yeah, so with us, I'm in an old warehouse, and thank you for someone who said about the sound cam coming. I hope that that's been fixed now. I've got my beautiful partner here doing the RIP tech. We're still learning all of this stuff, you know. But I'm in a warehouse and I don't have ventilation. I'm not a university or a museum, or we didn't have that. So we'll place ourselves by the door, wear all our PPE, just like set up a little table, have the door open, because I don't have a backyard or a courtyard or anything like that being in a warehouse. But as long as you've got ventilation where those chemicals can kind of flow out and be dispersed, that will be appropriate, because you're not going to be suffering wearing your PPE, but then everyone else in your surroundings is not going to be suffering. So if there is any way that you can ventilate at home, by a window, by a door, outside, that will work perfectly, because we're not going to be in a space with huge events above us.
Yeah, so comment in there about a workshop with a couple of fans going. I think absolutely. And get some fans going and an open door, try and create that cross ventilation is absolutely key. And I think you guys can all see the chat comments, so just keep watching through the chat. If there's anything else there I feel like we need to answer, I'll do that.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing was with the goggles, Gavin, because prior to meeting you, I used to wear the little glasses, and they're just useless.
Yeah.
So these guys don't work at all. Whereas these guys are incredibly important.
Yeah. So goggles, I guess goggles are there to prevent splashes and risk of a splash into your eyes. The last thing you want to do is, those other goggles are actually designed for impact. So a flying object hitting your eye. So ideally try and get goggles where you possibly can as well.
Yeah. And I guess because they stick to the face, like if any of you have been snorkeling or scuba diving, which I love, they stick to and suck to your face. So they're making sure that water, liquid, vapors don't go into your eyes, whereas glasses aren't doing anything. They're just, as Gavin said, a protective hard surface that essentially stops stuff flying into your eyes, which is not what is happening. It's the vapors that you want to protect yourself from.
Yeah, absolutely. So a question around goggles and fitting over glasses. Look, I think absolutely you can get goggles that will fit over glasses. I think from memory,
We can
Nat's
try. Put on the
got some 3M ones which do form a
goggles.
seal. Go on, you can be our lovely model.
I mean, we can try, but I can't see a long ways away, so I don't have to wear them technically, but I think they will fit. I think yeah. I mean, it's not my best look, but it does work.
Yeah.
It's definitely not my best look.
I just say that for the Christmas party.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it's really important that we acknowledge here tonight that Nat's not going to wear the PPE. She's actually going to be injecting with just water. And from memory, we're going to add blue dye to the water so we can see where the water's, what we're doing in terms of injection, so we can try and demonstrate that on the screen.
Yeah.
So don't freak out that Nat's not using the respiratory and eye protection.
Yeah, it's getting cold and stormy in Melbourne, and we don't want the sound coming in. And also my partner's here, so I didn't want to be actually injecting formalin, but we can show you the process, so I don't have to wear it. And to the point that Gavin made about the blue dye, we have our wet preservation book and ebook. And in this book and in the demonstration that we're going to do tonight, we chose to use a piglet because the tissue is very human-like, but also because we're going to be adding blue dye to the formalin or the water that we're going to be injecting with, you can actually see what's happening under the skin.
Yeah.
And we thought that was really important because fixing your specimen means that you literally need to penetrate all of that tissue. And so with the blue dye, you can actually see how that liquid is penetrating the tissue. So don't inject your specimens with blue dye at home, obviously.
It's it just helps us be able to demonstrate it on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shall I get the piglet?
Yeah, sounds good. So you'll also notice Nat's going to keep wearing gloves, and I guess that I would encourage people to consider wearing gloves whenever handling biological specimens. You simply don't know the risks that these carry, and so gloves provide that additional level of barrier of protection just in case. So yeah, let's focus on gloves being our key thing. So our first point that we want to do here is actually to decontaminate.
Hang on, Gavin. We've just lost you a little bit. Take a second with your connection. Hold on, Gavin.
So we just got some warm. So you're in slow motion. Oh, now you sped up.
Yeah, you dropped out for a second. Just take maybe 5 seconds, and then do you want to talk to me? Are we back?
Yeah, we should be back now.
Okay, you're back.
Sorry
Fantastic.
about that. The joys
That's okay.
the
joys of the internet, darling.
Yeah. That's right. Just hotspotted off my phone and said it tends to be a little bit more reliable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't go into the NBN discussion, will we?
No, we won't.
Right. And so Nat, it's time to give our little piglet a little bath. So we're aiming just to clean off any excess dirt or material that might be on the edge of its
blood.
Yeah, and blood.
Tissue, in this case of like a baby, you might see some skin coming off.
There might potentially be a little bit of bedding from when it was picked up. So Nat, the source of these piglets, they've been sourced as part of a natural process of, I guess, rearing of pigs, and they occasionally, some are either stillborn or just crushed as part of a normal process of animal husbandry, that not all piglets make it.
Yeah, so I didn't know this. So we get these from Dissection Connection, which is a partner of ours. The guys that run Dissection Connection also run the Gympie Bone Museum, which is really cool. But they do a whole bunch of specimens for teaching resources across schools in Australia. And so they get a lot of piglets. And what I didn't realize is that when a mother piglet, is that a sow?
Sour. Yeah.
Sour. So are you sure it's not so?
No.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't trust your Kiwi accent, but I am probably saying
Okay.
it wrong. They actually will have often too many in a litter, and often they will stomp or roll on their baby piglets because they can't feed them, or they just roll on them or what have you. And so we will get a lot of these guys that we purchase from Dissection Connection, and often you'll see bruising on them where the mother stomped them or what have you, which is sad. But they're also for us a really good training resource because the tissue's pink, it's very human-like, and you can see a lot of the details that are happening under the skin. And I don't know if you can see, I just noticed this guy's got like 2 little black beauty spots on him, like little freckles.
Yeah.
It's really cute.
Yeah, they are cute.
So we've just done the wash in the just a normal soapy detergent, really important, because you want to clear off. You can see that the tissue's coming off, particularly a lot of you might be preserving like little fetal specimens and things like that. So you want to get all this excess tissue off of them. And then after I've done the soapy wash, what do we do, Gavin? You direct me.
One, you've got to give them a quick rinse under water,
Yep.
just to rinse off any soap. So one of the key things that soapy water does is actually acts as an antibacterial agent. So if there's any bacteria on that skin, it's just going to help clear that off and just clean it down. No different to, that's why antibacterial soap for your for washing your dishes at home, it works very effectively in this purpose.
Yeah. And Cam, I just might get you, if that's okay, would you mind getting me a tea towel? Obviously, guys, you would usually do this in the sink, but because we're demonstrating, I'm doing it on the tray. So I'm just going to get a bit of a tea towel and clean up in front of me. Thank you. And that one can go away, darling. Thanks, baby.
Yeah. So a question here about sourcing of the piglets from Dissection Connection. I believe that they will sell them to the general public as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those guys they're great. Yep. And they sell lots of things. So they'll sell plucks, which we use in our corrosion casting class. Like if you want to do a heart preservation, they sell all kinds of odd, offal. So brains, hearts, things like that. They'll sell piglets. They've got all kinds of stuff. And yes, they do also supply to the public. I do find because even with us, we have to do this. So we have to use proper transport companies for frozen goods. It is better if you plan your projects and buy, 10 or 15 things from them. And then it will come in a box because you're going to have to pay for that freezing and that weight of the box anyway with the dry ice and the things like that. But they're a fantastic company because often sourcing stuff, I mean, I know running Rest in Pieces, that's been one of my biggest challenges is how do you actually get the specimens and good quality. And Deb definitely knows what we need. So she'll send you the right specimens, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a quick question around bacteria grow in formalin. Traditionally, bacteria won't grow in formalin, but we obviously don't want to necessarily introduce it into the specimen and just help kind of clean that space up. So we've got one other little task to do in terms of cleaning up, and unfortunately, piglets or specimens tend to have a little bit of fecal matter inside their abdomen, and ideally, you want to try and, I guess, squeeze it out at this point rather than having it come out at a later stage. And it's also, last thing you want to do is have your display discolored because it's had a little bit of fecal matter. So Nat's going to...
This is my least I'm glad that my face cam isn't on. I could just hate this.
Oh, it's on that, don't worry.
Can you I'm making the face? Actually, mine has none. But postmortem poop is super common. If you've ever done a class with us, it's really common. And you guys need to get rid of that before you start preserving your specimen because it will discolor it. You actually need to take, quite a bit of care before we even start injecting, just to like look after this skin and this tissue. And you can see, because this little guy was like a stillborn, so he's got like a lot of like kind of afterbirth and stuff still on him. So you really need to clean them up and show them a bit of love before you go down that route of preservation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess when it's time to clean it up, you don't have to have it perfect at this stage. You're going to be handling it and moving it a lot anyway. It's some more of it's probably going to slough off, and we can still continue to just try and, I guess, tweak it and clean it up as we go through. But obviously, if you get rid of the vast majority of it at this early stage, it helps us later down the track.
Yeah.
So that little piggy is looking pretty much ready to get started. So I guess the next thing we're going to step into is the process of fixation. And here we want to try and first of all work out how heavy our little pig is, because that's going to help us set up our target amount of formaldehyde or formalin solution, which we want to try and inject. So that's going to first of all weigh it.
And we just need to set this one to grams to begin with. Don't make the mistake of not weighing your specimen out correctly. So I've just got like a standard little cooking scale here. I've taken my gloves off, guys, because my specimen's now clean, but also my scale doesn't register my fingers with my gloves on. So I've just taken my gloves off for this part, and also so I can use my pencil. So we've got 899 is my weight. And why do we take that measurement, Gavin? What do I have to do with my 899 grams?
Yeah, so we take that measurement, and what we're going to do, you're going to write that out. Perfect. We're actually going to multiply it by 0.25 or 25%. And so I've just done the quick maths, and that's 225.
225?
Yep. 225. Yeah.
Could you divide this by 4 as well?
You could divide it by 4.
Yeah, that's another way. And so what we're doing is when you inject your specimen, actually, you can say this, Gavin.
So what we aim for in this environment is we want to introduce another 25% of its body weight in fixative solution. And the justification behind that is you need a certain amount of fixative to fix a certain amount of tissue. And that average of 25% of 10% formalin, which we're going to be using, generally, if you've totally saturated the tissue, one, it's about as much fluid as the specimen will take. And the second is that it's also going to be enough formalin to fix all of that tissue as well. So it's a really nice, helpful tool. And if we were going down the process of doing an anatomical embalming, it's actually that same process. We're aiming for 25% increase in body weight.
Yeah, so when I started, guys, I didn't know this. I'd just put a couple of injections in and think Bob's your uncle. And then I'd find that my stomach of my specimens would swell up over time. They would float. They weren't fully fixed.
Yeah.
Not only that, I didn't know how much formalin to put in, and I also didn't know where to put it. And these are important things if you want to do beautiful specimens. So you can times it by 0.25, or you can divide the weight by 4. Essentially, we just want to inject a quarter of the body weight in liquid. So we're going to measure our scales in grams. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure how much I need to inject in mils, because that's a liquid measurement. We don't measure liquid in grams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a few questions there, Gav, if you want to take over.
Yep. There's a question about fetal birds. and dealing with that. Look, I have no experience, so I can't even
I
answer.
do. Can you read it to me, Gav? I can't see.
So you've removed the fetal bird from an egg
Yep.
that didn't hatch.
Yep.
A lot of the time the egg yolk sac breaks and falls off. Is there a way to
Yep.
clean the belly button area that is still open?
Yeah, you need to pull the yolk out of the unhatched specimen. So anyone who's done our baby chick workshop, what happens is a couple of days before a baby bird hatches, it sucks its own yolk from its egg into its stomach, and it feeds off of that yolk for a few days before after it hatches. So let's say it hatches and it can't really eat the seed or what have you. It has enough nutrients in its belly because it's feeding off of its own yolk. And what you might be finding is if that has broken, that the yolk might be kind of half in them and half out of them. So in that instance, the best thing that you can do is use your tweezers to pull the yolk out of their abdomen. And there will be a point where you can cut it before it hits the intestine. And then you could just do like a simple, like 1 or 2 stitches and hide that under the feathers. So that's how I would approach that.
Yeah. And so Catherine's asked a question, is that 25% or 0.25 from experience, or is there a reference? It's from experience. You've worked in the world of anatomy. They don't tend to document these types of procedures particularly well. And they kind of think it's a hidden secret. So, but, you know, having done hundreds of different embalmings and wet specimens, this 25% is a pretty good factor. There is some reference about how much formalin will fix. So if you've got 100 liters of formalin, it'll only fix a certain amount of tissue. There is some evidence and some scientific justification for that component. And so that, I guess, that also forms part of that process as well. Right, you can see now Nat moved on to our lovely 10% neutral buffered formalin. So I think it's really important here to talk about the neutral buffered formalin component. What that really means is it's 10% formaldehyde in a buffered salt solution. And when they say buffered salt, that means the pH is somewhere around 7. And they use 2 different sorts of salts to balance that out. And it's basically to try and create it so it's the process of isotonic. We've heard of isotonic sports drinks where it can be absorbed quickly through the body. And it's that whole similar process where you want your formalin to have the right salt balance so that so it can pass through cell membranes quite easily, and you get the most appropriate amount of penetration into the tissue, which is our aim.
Yeah. And I think what's also cool about formalin is you do not want to be buying formaldehyde. I don't even know if you can.
You can.
But can the general public?
No, probably not.
Yeah. So that's the good thing, that you don't need to be. So this is 10% of formaldehyde, the strength of formaldehyde. And this shit burns your eyes and you can't breathe. And it is super toxic. Yeah. So you do not want to be handling formaldehyde and having to water it down. Neutral buffered formalin is still super toxic, but you can buy this as a member of the general public. And the question hasn't come up yet, but I often get this question in the Dying to Know group, which you'll all be invited to join, where we share information and jump in and just try and help you where we can. So this we get from, you can get it from eBay. We also buy directly from this manufacturer, POCD. But for you guys, you can jump on eBay, and they've actually started listing their products on there. So we just buy this 2.5 liter container. I can't quite remember how much this one costs. It's been a while since I bought it because obviously I buy everything in bulk. But it is reasonably priced, and eBay will sell it to you. So it is good that you don't have to buy formaldehyde and then figure out how to water it down. But just imagine that this is 10% the strength of Formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is incredibly toxic. I don't know how anyone managed to be around it, because even this stuff is difficult to be around.
Yeah, so I actually had to learn how to mix it up from scratch and make neutral buffered formalin. And that's
Was
not.
that with your mentor in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, how did that feel? Because
Uh,
formalin's so intense.
to be fair, we were doing it under a fume hood and in very
Mm.
controlled ventilated cabinets, so we don't have any exposure ourselves.
Yeah.
The process is not straightforward as it sounds. You've got to dissolve all sorts of different salts, get the pH right. You add the formalin, and then you've got to get the pH right again, because formalin tends to be a little bit acidic and it upsets it. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, fun times. All right, I think we should keep moving. So we're aiming to get 225 litres of our formaldehyde. So we're actually going to use water for the demonstration. So Nat's going to set up our little glass jar, zero it. And
Really important you zero it, because you don't want the weight of the jar coming into play.
Yep.
Like Gavin said, this is just water. And Gavin has told me we need 225 mils of our formalin.
Pressure's on, Nat. Oh,
Shit. Oh my God, 227. No, I'm not. I'm never going to fix it. I can't be bothered. No, it'll just be a disaster of me like flip-flopping back.
no, don't go down that.
And then to this, guys, which you won't do at home, I'm going to add blue dye so you can see what I'm doing. And then Gavin is going to talk me through this process, because he is the one who taught me all about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to make 12 different injection points. So I guess the first thing we want to do is obviously make sure that we've got our needle and syringe. So here we're using a 50 ml syringe because it's a relatively large specimen. And I assume it's about a 19 gauge needle that's 1.5 inches long.
Yeah, they're quite long. I hadn't ever used them before you, but it makes so much sense on a specimen like a piglet.
Yeah.
Because I was just using insulin syringes before I met you, and that was quite frankly useless.
That scares me. That's a lot of work. So a 19 gauge needle is quite a large needle, and it allows you to, we're working on a large specimen, and it just allows you to work through a couple of smaller injection points, but quite a long needle as well. So it lets you reach quite a long way through from that one injection point. So our first point, I guess, is to fill up the syringe, Nat. So yep. Opening up the syringe, you can open them up a couple of ways. Traditionally, everybody opens them up from the bottom and you pull two tabs apart. It's a real pain. I don't like doing it. So I encourage Nat just to push them through the actual paper. You just grab it.
So good.
Super
so
easy.
Quick and easy.
Especially if you've got
Love it. It's like my best
hands.
technique.
Yeah. If you've got dirty hands or greasy hands, we don't have to have sterile technique. But it's just a simple way to open them up. Nat was so excited when I showed her that. And same thing for this one.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh, and remind me, Gavin, do I put the needle? No. I fill the syringe before I put the needle on, don't I?
Absolutely.
I always get that wrong.
Yeah. Always fill the syringe first. It's got a slightly bigger hole and it's much easier to draw the solution up without the needle on. And you can tell a 50 ml syringe, we're going to have to fill it 4.5 times throughout this process. So we really do encourage you to remove the needle when it's time to refill it. It's just a whole lot easier to do.
And we'll show you what we mean by that. So you're actually going to leave the needle inside the specimen so that we're making less holes, because more holes means more leaching. So we actually want to make the least amount of holes in the specimen as we possibly can, which was news to me, let me assure you.
Yeah, so there's quite a big air bubble. So I guess Nat will just use a bit of paper towel to expel that air bubble. You just want to be that nurse on the TV show, don't you?
Yeah. Ratchet. I want to be Ratchet.
There we go. All right, so now it's time to put the needle on. So I think it's really important here. We're handling a sharp, so let's really focus on making sure you're keeping your fingers well clear. You can see how large a needle it is. And that there really does allow us to reach a long way through our specimen from a single injection point. So once we break that skin, we want to minimize those points where we're breaking the skin. We want to have the skin act as its natural barrier to hold the formalin in place. So now I think we're going to start with the front limb, and we're going to aim to inject just in behind the elbow joint. So you might want to turn the whole specimen around.
Yep. Does that work better for you guys?
Well, from what I can see, it works better.
Okay. So you want me to come in behind like the scap, or just behind the elbow?
Behind the elbow. Yep.
Yep. So
And
you guys can kind of identify your elbow here versus the scapula, which is the shoulder blade. So we'll just.
And so what we're going to do is push the needle all the way down to the end of the limb as much as we can.
Towards the hoof?
Towards the hoof.
Yep.
Yep. And then we're going to slowly back out like a couple of millimeters, 1 or 2 millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so what that's done is create a bit of a space at the end of the needle for the fluid to go in. If you push the needle in, you'll find you might end up with a little bit of tissue just sitting right on the edge of the needle, and it can be quite hard to push in. So now if you want to slowly start injecting, it may not be quite so clear at this stage. And it's going to be quite a bit of resistance. It's not going to take a lot of fluid. There's not a lot of space in the end of the limbs at the moment.
Yeah, I can feel like that
resistance.
The formalin like went in, and now it almost feels like the skin's expanding and doesn't want to take anymore.
Yeah. So what we do at that point was we just slowly back out another 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter.
Yep.
And inject again.
Cool.
So what we're trying to do here is flood all of that tissue as we go. The skin acts as our natural barrier to hold all that tissue in place. And you can see the blue dye is really taking effect now.
Yep.
So we pull out a little bit more and we want to inject.
That really works by drawing the needle back. Absolutely. I can feel that I'm plumping up each section of the limb.
Yeah. So I can see on the screen now that limb has increased in size quite dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, totally.
All right. So now what we want to do is be really careful that we don't pull the needle all the way out. We're very close to the tip of the needle being at the edge of the skin. So we want to pull the needle out as the edge of the skin as possible. And we're actually going to turn the syringe around and try and come back into the shoulder.
Okay.
So the right shoulder. Yeah, there we go. Just like that.
Up. So just up under the scap or on top of the scapula?
We're going to go on top of. So if we do pull it out, it's not the end of the problem. We want to aim to come back in that same hole.
I've gone back in the same hole, which is good. I'm just doing it backwards, guys. So it's going to be a little bit tricky for me.
Yeah. So we want to inject into the musculature at the top of the shoulder.
Yep. So over the scap.
Yep. Over the top of the scapula to start with.
Yep. Okay. It's really weird doing it backwards.
It's really weird watching it.
Hang on.
It's just
sorry, my arm was in the way.
Yeah.
I'll move that.
Actually, it's quite a lot of thinking.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's full.
Yep. So we then want to try and go a little bit further forwards if you can to try and get into the base of the neck.
Yep.
You slide that needle.
Yep. I'm going to move it through that muscle.
Yep.
And then I'm going to, yep. And actually, I don't know if you guys can see, but this neck is totally puffing up and swelling now.
Yeah.
So it's actually changing shape under my hands.
Yeah. So if you can try and come forwards at the front part of the neck.
Yep.
So you can see we're using one injection point and we're trying to minimize how many holes we're making in the skin, but we're also reaching quite a large area of the body.
Yeah, he's jacked. I mean, he's done a full arm session at the gym.
Yeah. All right. So now we want to keep rotating that needle around and aim to target the back of the shoulder. Oh.
We're still in. We're good.
You can see the needle sitting right on that surface.
Yeah, I'm just going to lift the skin so that I'm not piercing it. Yep, that's working.
Yeah. So there's a question about using a meat injector. I've never used a meat injector. I think if it's mechanical, it's going to have way too much force. But I would advocate using a syringe, because I think feel is really important in this environment. And a lot of what we do is around that hepatic feedback, and that feel, as Nat's described, you can actually feel the resistance build in the syringe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel when my syringe can't go any further. And also I can feel when the skin isn't prepared to expand anymore. And actually, I don't know if you guys can see, there's a divot. Can you see it? Looks like a dimple here. So because I can see that, I've just moved my syringe in there, and I'm just feeling that out, and you should be seeing that expand.
Yep.
And then I can kind of massage that in. So now I know that I've done this whole leg, this whole shoulder blade, almost up into the neck, and now coming into the back, all through the one injection point.
Yep. So you can also come down the back a little bit as well, Nat, if you can try coming down the back.
Yep, I'll come down the back.
Yep. So you can see one single injection point can reach quite a lot of the body.
Yeah, he's really plumping up now.
Okay. So now what I'm going to get you to do is turn the needle and hold it at 90 degrees to the body, and we're going to go into the actual chest cavity. So yeah, lift it up.
Yep.
And then down in between, sort of feel, you're going to feel between the ribs and push down between the ribs. So when we're doing this, our aim is to really flood the
I'm in.
Yeah. So that takes a little bit of practice, because sometimes you might hit a rib and you might need to just slowly maneuver the needle to get around the ribs and get in past the ribs. And your aim here is to really flood those heart and lungs and fully saturate and fully, I guess, completely cover them.
Yeah. And that, now that I'm in the right spot,
you're taking a lot of fluid.
It's taking a lot of fluid, a lot.
Yep.
And actually now I'm just about to run out. So I believe you told me just to stop with a couple of mil just left in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you're not pumping air, because air will make your specimen float.
Yeah, I've had a few panic phone calls, haven't I, Nat?
Oh my God. I'm like, Gavin, I can't stop my specimens from floating. Gavin, I can't get the air bubbles out of my liquid. Gavin. Do you want to talk about this guy being left in?
Yeah, so I guess normally if we need to refill the syringe, we would leave the needle in place, go back and fill it. So one, we don't have a sharps exposure, and two, we kept it in that same hole. It's just a little bit of a safety thing that we really try and focus on if we're focusing on this sort of how can we minimize our risk to sharps injuries, because needles are pretty unforgiving if you get them wrong.
Yeah.
Where
would you like me to inject next, Gavin?
What was that? Sorry?
Where would you like me to inject next?
Well, we haven't quite finished with that forelimb.
Oh, okay. Tell me what to do.
So we need to pull that needle out. I'll reattach it to the syringe.
Yep. Can I have another paper towel, please, darling? Yep. And then where do you want me to go?
So we're going to take that syringe out now, but we're also going to put a little bit of additional formaldehyde, so between the fingers.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Because you can see they haven't really gone pink.
Yeah, my needle didn't reach down that far.
Exactly. So the needle, it depends on the size of your specimen as to whether you need to do this particular approach, but there's an option to come down between generally the toes.
Yeah.
And you can just slowly inject a little bit. It's only 1 or 2 mils, but it's enough just to fill that hoof as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that that's filling it up. That worked good. It didn't take a lot, but it definitely, I'm just going to change the angle one more time and try and get down. But also, what are the hooves made of?
Collagen.
Collagen, yeah. So I felt that when I hit the collagen, it just squirted out. It wasn't having a bar of it. but I can definitely see that that whole foot right now down to the collagen of the hooves is totally injected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we had a question here about injecting holes or injecting a reptile. Reptiles are way more challenging because you've got scales, but I think strategic choice of where you inject, you'd come in between a scale and try and get under the scale, and then use that needle in that same sort of process where you're trying to inject to as much of the snake as possible from one single injection point. It's a pretty good process to try and follow to minimize that breaking of the skin or that sealing. The other question here about the idea is with the solution is to absolutely penetrate or coat the tissue so it doesn't decay. Yeah, absolutely. So formaldehyde works by what they call cross-linking the proteins, or stops the proteins from breaking down. But it's also a bactericide, so it kills bacteria, it kills fungi as well, and it'll kill, well, viruses aren't of a concern in the same way, but it'll kill viruses as well. So it's really important that formaldehyde gets to all of the tissue to create that cross-link to stop the proteins from breaking down. And that's basically how it works. So yeah, that's what we're doing here, but we're doing it through minimal disruption to the tissue in terms of the external features where we possibly can. Right, Nat, so it's time to move on to our hind limb.
Okay. Tell me what to do, darling.
So very similar process. We're actually going to start exactly the same spot, just in front or just behind the knee again.
Yep.
Sorry, not the knee. The
hip.
No, the hock. So further down the limb this time. Yep.
Oh.
So halfway down. Yep, exactly. That's it.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
And so we're going to run down into the bottom of the foot towards the hoof.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect.
So we can see here that again, that needle's going to reach most of the way.
Yeah, this one's much better.
Yeah,
it almost reaches all of the way because we're starting at a much lower puncture point.
Yeah. But the hips have got a lot more muscles, so we need to come at them a couple of times.
Yeah. And then Gavin, I can feel this is already puffing up quite a lot and you can see the blue dye going in. Should I keep retracting the needle and then injecting?
Absolutely. So same process again, small amount, inject, retract needle, inject again. And we just keep slowly backfilling the specimen as we go.
It seems so obvious, but I never ever did this when I was first preserving my specimens. I literally would do like 70 holes and just like inject them with stuff. And it doesn't, I mean, it's not nearly as effective or as good.
No, and you end up with lots of little holes everywhere too.
Yeah, and then they leach everywhere and you have floating issues, you have color issues. It was just a nightmare. Yeah. So I've done that hoof now. So are we going to come back up into the leg?
Yeah.
Or what do you want me to do?
Just turn the needle around.
Okay.
And keep turning it around and then come back up the limb.
I'm just going to face it towards me because I'm bending the needle, and then I'll put it in a good view for you guys.
Yeah, either or, it's okay, Nat, either way.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions. When you can't see the dye, how do you tell? So the tissue actually puffs up. It increases. It looks like he's been at the gym and done a massive workout. It's instant bodybuilding.
You can see it under the skin, and you can almost massage it. So I find that I'll get like quite a big lump of liquid, and then I'll massage it out and it plumps out the whole area. You can move that liquid around under the skin. Yeah.
And I think it's really important to talk about that, in that the fluid we're using is buffered formalin. So that means it does move across those cell membranes, and it will, that pressure, you might have high pressure points, but it will naturally redistribute out, and we'll end up with quite even pressure across the board as well. So it does, don't be freaked out too much if initially it looks a bit lumpy. Generally that will set out over time. Yeah, this arm looks super smooth now because we just massaged that out. And now that it's resting, this just looks really plump and really beautiful, and it doesn't look lumpy at all. Yeah. So now it's just going to keep moving around, and we're going to try and inject as much of the musculature as we possibly can. Oh, it's really hard around that butt. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of really dense muscle tissue.
Yeah.
So a question from Catherine is, does the specimen leak when you pull the needle out? Look, it'll leak a little, but you'll see a paper towel just to mop up any small leaks. You can minimize your exposure. And that's one of the huge advantages of doing small, like only a couple of key injection points, is you're less likely to have leaking formalin all over the bench. You're not going to have so much exposure as well. So I think it's a really key component to minimize your exposure in that environment as well, even with the PPE on.
Yeah.
You don't have formalin baths slopping around all over the place.
All right. I feel like I've reached about as much as I can from behind the hoof.
Yeah. So now we want to try and see if we can start to inject back up to the spine. Can you reach that far with the needle, or do we need to make a second?
No, I'm still sitting up in the glute.
Yep.
So
okay.
I think I might need to make another one just to get a little bit higher up to the spine.
Yep. There you go.
So maybe behind the hip.
Yep. So, well, yeah, just in front of the hip.
Yep.
So where your finger is now, or where your left finger is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's great. That's getting into the spine.
Yeah, and it's going to allow you capacity to reach halfway up the spine as well.
Yeah, it is. I can move. My needle's almost up here now, so I'm about halfway up the body.
Yep.
And I'm finding that if I just gently move this around, it's taking quite a bit of liquid.
Yep. So that probably indicates you've actually gone through into the abdomen.
Okay. Yep.
But that's fine.
Oh, no, it's grabbing. No, I'm not in the abdomen. No, it's stopped.
Okay.
Do you want me to go into the abdomen?
No, not yet. We'll
Yeah, no, it's fit. That's as much as I can get in there.
Yeah, perfect. And so we're going to have to do one halfway along the spine where your middle finger is on your left hand now.
Yep.
And from there, we're going to be able to go up and down the spine to complete that connection of muscle and the spine.
Yep. So it is connecting
just connecting
those two limbs now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
So every specimen is slightly different. And they're going to take multiple different injection points depending on how big. So if it's a small piglet, you may not necessarily need to do this. The needle might be long enough to reach from upper limb to the lower limb. The slightly bigger piglet.
Just going to do my changeover again. So remember, leave the needle in.
Absolutely.
I found that fascinating when you did that, you know?
Yeah, you were like, why? I'm like, why would you remove it? Why would you expose it?
Makes so much sense. It really makes so much sense, babe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when you've been doing it for a while, you don't even think about why you're doing stuff now. You just do it.
That's the beauty of writing classes and books, though, because we literally have to think, well, why do we do that? Like, it might have taken us 10 years to learn, but then putting it into words is really interesting.
Yeah. So there's been a question here about if a specimen hasn't been injected, but it's held up well for years, should you try and re-inject it? Absolutely not. If it's held up, that probably indicates to me that it's been in a formalin bath. So you can do preservation in formalin baths to a limited degree. It does have very limited penetration capacity. But generally, if it's held up for years already, I wouldn't go messing with it. I would just leave it as is. And that's a pretty standard approach for most museum work as well. If you don't know what the fluids are, you'd be very, very careful and mindful about changing any fluids as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to upset what was done by some preparator previously and find you end up losing the specimen, because that's always a risk.
Yeah, look, we do heaps of preservation of old scientific specimens for schools and museums and stuff like that.
Matt, you're scaring me with that needle.
Why?
Because your fingers are close to it. That's much better. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, Dad.
All right. I think we might focus on moving up to the head. And we want to come in and we want to try and inject in just behind the ear as our next point. And so from here, we can then reach down into that middle part of we can reach most of the face from here. And we can reach down into that fleshy, meaty component of the neck we weren't able to reach earlier on when doing the forelin.
Yeah. Yep, that's really plumping up a lot.
Yeah.
And like Gavin said, I'm just pulling the needle back as I'm injecting. And then I might just move that needle one time and get into that, just that little bit of neck bit that I missed.
Yep.
And I've got that now. So that's looking really good, Gavin.
Perfect. We'll keep working on this one side of the pig. So the one last area that we really do need to focus on is the snout and the tongue and just inside the mouth.
Yep.
So we're going to turn little piglet around. We should have named him, shouldn't we? It is a boy. See, that's why I don't like.
Maybe you guys can vote on a name in the comment section. Guide me. What would you like me to do, love? Oh, Gavin's frozen. He looks really stern. Do you guys want to drop some names for the piglet? He kind of looks like a Smurf. Gavin will reconnect in a second. We can go up through the snout. And oh, are you back, Gav? Your eyes are moving. No, they're not moving. Boy or a girl? Gender neutral.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about
Yay!
that.
We got some names. Jellybean, George. I like George. Bacon, Winfrey. I quite like George. I quite like an old English name for all my specimens.
For your white blue pig.
Yeah. All right. Tell me how do we inject into the snout? Where would you like me to inject?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to inject into the snout. So underneath, ideally into the mouth, because we want to try and preserve the facial features as much as possible. So inside the mouth, there's a little bit of a fleshy piece just inside the snout that you can into the soft palate.
Oh, yep. So up into the palate. So when we say palate, we mean the roof of your mouth. So if you run your tongue along the roof of your mouth now, you'll feel the little lumps. Yep. I can get up in there. So I'm going to inject in there. Yep. Great. Yep. It's pretty firm.
Yep.
But I can feel it's going in there. Oh, now I've come out the head. I'll just back up a little bit. I'm still too high. Okay, yep. Yep, now I can feel that's actually getting fixed into the tissue rather than just coming out. Yep, done that.
Absolutely. And so from that point there, what it's going to do is actually help get up and around the eyes as well.
Yep.
So the musculature in and around the eyes as well. So we can kind of see that cheek is pretty well done anyway.
Yep.
So that's really just helping with that.
Yep.
And I guess the one final thing is if we can just have a quick look and make sure its tongue is well preserved, we might need to come in underneath the tongue.
I think in this one we might need to. It's got quite a large tongue and it's sticking out.
Yeah.
So I would probably preserve that. And then are we going to do the brain cavity, Gavin?
I've just remembered about the brain cavity because that's really
yes.
to get into.
I thought you might like the little memory jog of that one.
I would work that one out before. And I'm like, let's finish this.
I'm just going to keep this blade in this tongue and I'm going to get the stuff for the brain. And then, guys, we're not going to make you sit through me injecting the other side. You get the point. Yep. We'll move on to our second stage, but you understand that you would just have to replicate what we're doing on the other side. So I'm just going to pull this out, and then the brain's an interesting one. Yeah.
So I skipped the step before, unfortunately. I missed it. So in behind the ear, we've got that lovely injection point. And generally, we've now, if you can tilt the head down and away from you at about a 45-degree angle, you should, in theory, open up a space where you should be able to get the needle in behind what they call the foramen magnum, the biggest hole in the base of the skull.
Yeah, I'm in.
It takes a bit of feeling. but
Yeah.
you get to pop the needle disappear right inside it, and just means you can inject some solution right into the brain cavity itself.
You guys can't see my face, but I'm just kind of looking up at the sky because I'm just, oh, I had it. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm in. Yeah, I'm in.
And so that 45-degree angle turned away and facing down generally just opens up a bit of a space to get in behind the vertebrae move and just open up enough as that's kind of articulating or moving, and just opens up a bit of a hole that we can get into.
It's taking a good amount of fluid too, Gavin.
Yeah. Yeah. Brains take a lot of fluid.
Yeah, that's taken nearly 30 mil.
Yep. Perfect. So we should probably have about 100 and something mils left.
Yep.
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 So a couple of key areas we've really got to inject before we go too much further is the abdomen, which is one we didn't touch on.
Yep.
And so we're going to just inject in from just the inside of the thigh.
Okay, we can do that.
Just because this is a slightly bigger pig, normally we wouldn't worry so much, but the inside of the thigh, you can see it's still got a little bit of a pink spot.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm in the abdomen now.
To inject like probably 30 mils into the abdomen, and you can really see it puff up.
Yeah, that's all going in.
So as you're slowly retracting that needle, we're just trying to pick up that last little bit of pink musculature tissue around the edge of that hind limb.
Yeah, that I can feel that that's totally plumped up. You can't see the blue because it's a little bit deeper, but I can feel that that's plumped up.
Yeah. And so we're just flooding the abdomen.
Yeah.
The tissue, all the tissues in the abdomen are very thin, so the formalin in it will penetrate all of that tissue.
Yeah, that's great, Gavin.
Perfect. So traditionally, obviously, then we'd turn it over and we would inject the other two limbs and the rest of the back that hasn't been done. So you can kind of see it's got a little bit of blue from the dye, but you can see all of the skeleton. You can see
the ribs and stuff.
Yeah, but if you turn it over,
I don't know if you guys can see this, but on this side, you see this? You can see all the ribs, but on this side, he's like way more plumped up. Can you see that?
Yeah.
You can still see a little bit of rib down the bottom, but it's vastly different to this empty rib cage.
Yeah. So Kath, that kind of goes to answering your question, how much do you know you're injecting? Well, you just watch from side to side and see how it's progressing as well. And it's a really nice, piglets are a really good example to really try and hone some of those skills, because it's very obvious you've got very detailed feedback through it, because if you're dealing with something with feathers or fur, it's much, much more difficult. All right, so now we're going to kind of move on to our next step of, I guess we want to, in between fixation, the injection process and the final mounting, we want to just do passive infusion. So they would literally go into a small bath of formalin for a period of a couple of weeks, just to ensure that skin, because obviously skin's pretty hard to try and inject. So if we have it in a bath of skin itself, it's going to actually get a whole lot of that formalin's going to fix that skin as well. And now's a really good opportunity to go back and just clean it up as we're working through that process. And now we're on to the lovely final step of prepping our specimen.
So we can do the passive infusion and just show them. What I might do is I might just change the cam so you're looking at me rather than looking down.
There's not a great deal of look.
Well, we're just popping in, you know? So we'll just show that because it's quite important. So Cam, if you can just change the view from the hand cam to me, or actually I still have the hand cam because apparently that comes up. Hi guys, I'm back having a glass of my wine. All right, and you got that jug for me?
Yeah. So so I guess one of the key points here with that secondary fixation is that if you've got a final mount or a final positioning sort of planned, now is the time to get that right. So it goes into the lovely jar, and you can try and get its positioning as somewhat how you want it. If you've got an ear that's folded over, now's a good time to fix it. And then we're adding fluid, and it'll stay in that fluid for a couple of weeks. But it's really important to get that positioning right now, because it does set relatively firmly. If anybody's played with formalin fixed tissue, it is relatively robust in its position.
And I personally would have chosen a more narrow vessel than this, so that the piglet would sit in a more ideal position. So this is just a smaller piglet that we had spare from Dissection Connection, which is lovely of them to send our way. So you're pretending right now that after you've done your injections, this is formalin. So this is just soaking this guy into what will eventually become its final position. So if you want the hooves sitting a certain way, you need to move that. Also, try and make sure that your jar's not too big. Like I said, this one, for my taste, it's probably slightly too big. I'm not a huge fan. But you can see that I can get it into place. And I've just got these nice big tweezers. And then this guy will literally fix and harden into this position.
Yeah. So I guess a key point here is, because it is formalin, we want to try and put as well a sealing lid as possible on, because we don't want to minimize that vapor of formalin sort of coming off and having people exposed. Another query about the injection into the tongue. So I would inject into the base of the tongue, where there's the vast majority of the musculature, and that pressure build up in there will actually naturally push it up into the tip of the tongue as well. The last thing, I wouldn't advocate, I personally wouldn't at least inject into the tip of the tongue or thereabouts, because you're going to see it in the final specimen. So you try and choose and minimize those injection points so that they're not obvious. And certainly most people are going to look at the face. So if it's a key feature you want to identify, please try and minimize your disturbance to that tissue as well. I guess you want to think about that final presentation as being your key.
And how long, Gavin? So when we put our specimen into the formalin bath,
yeah,
how long do you think that we would need to do a specimen the size of a piglet for?
I would say,
because it kind of surprised me.
Yeah, I'd say 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But you could leave it for 6 months. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to change the tissue particularly, but 2 weeks is a good rule of thumb to get an appropriate level of fixation. Fixation does take time. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it takes 3 to 4 days to penetrate 5 millimeters.
Yeah.
Through the tissue. So it's not fast, it's quite slow, and that's probably about the limit of it. But 2 weeks just gives that opportunity for everything to rest, to settle. And when it's time to transfer it to that final mounting stage, any leaching that's going to happen is going to leach out into that formalin as well.
Yeah. And so I didn't know what this meant in the beginning. Leaching, do you want to explain that? Because you have injection points.
Yeah.
And then what's leaching doing? So it's partially absorbing fluid, but also releasing fluid. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if there's any blood material of the mixing of blood in the tissue, or in that solution we've injected, that blood will tend to want to come out and try and redistribute itself across. So allowing it to sit for a couple of weeks just allows it to all be captured in one key area. And I'm big on advocating that we dispose of this formalin after one use. And lots of people talk about reusing it, but you can imagine reusing formalin that's been contaminated with another specimen. Eventually formalin loses its effectiveness, and you simply don't know how much of it is that you've got left is effective.
Because it's containing other types of proteins, so blood, tissue, contaminants, and you don't want your new specimen absorbing those things because they might break down over time.
Yeah, and there's only a certain amount of active ingredient in the formalin, and it can only fix a certain amount of tissue. And I would strongly encourage people to not recycle and reuse formalin, but to consider it as part of the process to ensure you always use fresh formalin the whole time. Yeah.
So there were 2 good questions. So the first one was when I filled up that container to fix my specimen. So we've injected. Now we're playing the waiting game. We've filled our container up with formalin. we've made our specimen sit nicely. Absolutely, you need to seal that container because the fumes will just run rampant through your house. It's you need to have a sealed container. So it is nice if you can do it in the vessel that you want to do it. I haven't sealed this vessel. I'm going to show you how to seal this scientific jar. So even for me, I would probably then go as far as to put Glad wrap on this because I haven't sealed this with a silicone yet. So I would put a Glad wrap on this just to contain the fumes. You want to limit your exposure as much as possible. And then for the disposal of formalin, I'm probably going to talk to this one, Gavin, only because I have to do it from someone who's running a company from their home rather than someone who has agreements, you know, through universities and stuff. So we have waste container jars, and we have a contract with a chemical disposal company. You don't have to have a contract with a chemical disposal company, but you can contain the waste in a clear container. So let's grab something. Oh, okay, thanks, guys. So we can take a container like this. You would put your chemicals into this, and then you can pay to drop it at the chemical disposal unit, and they'll charge you like a small fee. It's essentially like a tip, but they you don't have to have a contract. But yes, it will cost you a little bit of money, but you cannot be exposing yourself, your family, your clients. You cannot be putting that stuff down the sink. As people, and I like to think that the majority of people that care about animal preservation, we also care about nature and the impact that that might have to living creatures. And if you put that shit down the sink, it's going to go into the waterways and it's going to kill everything around it. So if you do want to preserve wet specimens at home, you need to collect the waste and you need to take care of it exactly like you would the dump.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the other key point here is that we have to, there's probably also potentially council. So I would, Kat's actually answered that question. I would suggest that you also contact your local council because they've probably got waste chemical cleanups, etc. as well. And I would imagine they're going to have an option for that sort of, 6-monthly free drop-off for chemical waste disposal as well.
Yeah. And often we're a little bit different because we're doing so much of it. But when we first started, we would collect barrels of it and then every 6 months kind of just get rid of it.
Yeah.
But if you're keeping it in a really beautiful sealed container, and one of the containers I showed you, you're not going to get any leaking or leaching into your environment. Like that's filled with formalin, and we're not inhaling any of that. So you need a really good sealed container.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's another question here about that setting it its particular position. If you want to prop it and use plastic or perspex to try and prop something open, absolutely. Absolutely. Now is the time as you start to put it into that secondary fixation process to prop it. If that's putting a block in its mouth, open its mouth, if there's something in particular you want to display, or to, as Nat has kind of kindly shown, you you can see the top of it at least.
So this is a dissected rat. And then if we turn it to the side, this is tied to a piece of perspex inside my glass. Can you see that, Gavin?
Yeah, we can. It's probably the camera, overhead camera is taking preference.
Oh, because of the sound.
Yeah.
Let's see are you spotlighting all 3 cameras?
Yep.
Is that working better?
That's much better.
Ah, okay, there we go. So if I turn this to the side, you can see that this is on perspex inside a glass scientific jar. And actually from the overhead, you can also see that there's a piece of perspex in there. And the reason that we've done that with this guy is because he's half a rat and he's showing a dissection. So it makes more sense for us to have secured him onto that sheet of perspex and then placed him in that position before we fixed him.
Yeah. So Cass asked the question, how do we dye the organs in those? I'm going to say very, very hard work.
Yeah, I'm going to say very hard work too.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of. It's they were produced. There was a couple of companies in Australia producing them, and they have long since gone out of business, and nobody's doing that work anymore.
So these are vintage specimens that we repair and replace for museums and schools and things like that. And we also sell them to the public because they were taking them to our chemical disposal unit and they were just smashing them and putting them in landfill. So once they run out, they run out. So they're really special historic pieces that no one makes anymore. And we just make them, we clean them up and make them beautiful to like stand the test of time.
Yeah, so they're mounted to the perspex, I assume, probably by using something like clear fishing line or something along those lines to tie it on, just tie it off. Yeah, or white thread, so it sort of disappears into the specimen.
Yeah, look, with our what's a good one? Our rabbit, actually in the bathroom, darling. I think we've got our rabbit neuro system. I used a white thread on that because it's so delicate that I really was scared to use a fishing wire because fishing wire can be quite harsh.
Yeah.
And so I just used a simple like fishing line, a simple white thread, and that turned out beautifully. So this is actually the neuro system of a rabbit. And yes, you can kind of see the white thread, but it's so delicate. And this specimen is so delicate.
Yeah.
And I would not have felt confident on this piece to use a fishing line because it would have cut that off.
Can you put it under the overhead cam?
Yeah, I can even like go like this way.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's much better view.
And that's the back view.
Yeah.
And so the front view, it's really amazing, right?
Yeah, it's my most favorite specimen.
Oh yeah, it's the nervous system of the rabbit. It's amazing. So you see the eyeballs here, and then it comes down and you can see all the nervous system running down the spine, the legs, everything. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A true
have to have specimen envy. We have like 2 for sale, and then you'll never be able to get them again. Well, no, actually I can't send that to overseas. So yeah, you should have specimen envy.
Yeah. So a question around how can we tell if the specimen is fixed properly? Generally, if you've used formalin and injected how we've shown you here, the specimen will be fixed because we've introduced enough formalin, but the tissue will be quite firm and it won't be
feels hard.
Yeah. And it won't be mushy as well.
And also bloated. I found that when I was injecting in specimens, the tummy would blow up and it would float. Everything should feel firm.
Yeah. So if it floats, is a sign that bacteria action has taken over and it's producing anaerobic bacteria, is producing gas, and it's just starting to float. And that's a sign that obviously formalin hasn't been able to sort of get on top of that bacteria and kill it.
Yep.
Another question here is, do we fill the jar completely at this stage? Ideally not. You don't need to for secondary fixation. You use enough to submerge the specimen, but you don't have to fill the jar. Yeah. It's unnecessary to fill the jar.
Do we want to move on to the final fixation and then we can answer the remainder of the questions, Gavin?
Yep, sounds good.
Cool.
So I guess now on to that final sort of display component, really. And so what we're going to use here is we're going to show the process of using isopropyl alcohol. It's not something that it's probably the most readily available option for doing this sort of work at home, as opposed to some of the more complicated long-term display fluids you would otherwise use in a museum space or a university space. But isopropyl works really well. It does discolor over time, unfortunately, which does mean you might need to change it out once every 3, 5 to 10 years, depending on the specimen.
Sorry, I'm glass on glass. It's really noisy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be discreet. There's nothing discreet about it at all. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so that's just prepping things here. So what we're going to do is get our little piglet that we've now preserved. And we're just going to, well, first of all, use isopropyl alcohol. Again, eBay purchase, Nat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure is, Gavin.
Pardon?
Sure is.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, again, we've covered off that disposal of our specimen. Disposal of our specimen, disposal of our fixative fluid. So we make sure that goes into waste containers. We want to give our little pig a bit of a rinse and a wash. So that's obviously been done off camera, which is great.
Yeah, Cam just did it in the bathroom. Cam, one of our relationship agreements is that she'll never handle dead animals. And she's just had to hand it to me because we're live. Which is really cute.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so
babe.
The process here is that obviously we want to just wash off that excess formalin before we start to introduce it into our isopropyl alcohol. So simply rinsing under cold running water is perfect in that environment. Yep. So we're now slowly topping up our lovely specimen. Any opportunity to any final adjustments while we've still got it open? And we'll just slowly keep topping up. So this is the time when we would normally want to fill it right to the very surface. And ideally, I think in this environment, air bubbles are probably your worst enemy at this point. So we want to try and minimize how many air bubbles we have in the specimen. It's very difficult to get rid of all of them, but you can see a few air bubbles rising. So it's just, a little couple of swirls, use the tongs to get in there, move things about, and fill it up.
This is going to leak over. I like with the jars to actually let them leak. This is just alcohol that you'll be using. So you're not putting any toxic chemicals in. But if you could see my face cam, by filling it up higher and then letting it leach, it's perfectly flat on my scientific jar. And then these scientific jars are nice because they've almost got like a sandblasted lid that goes on the inside.
Yep. And
it traps that liquid. Now, if you don't seal this lid, all your alcohol is going to evaporate over time. And probably you've seen specimens, everywhere, schools, museums, whatever, that they're just even your own specimens at home that are evaporating. And that's because we're using an alcohol. The specimens that we do here, we use a different solution, which is a Kaiserling solution. And we will hope to get into that with an intermediate book and workshop for you guys, or tutorial. But with alcohol, you absolutely have to seal it. Otherwise, it's just going to evaporate over time.
Yep.
So we'll take you through the sealing process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've now got our nice, well-fitting jar. So if you're using jam jars, are pretty common, and they've generally got their own plastic self-sealing lid, which will probably job done. But in this environment, we've got glass on glass. It hasn't formed a perfectly good seal. So now we're going to just use silicone sealant.
Yep.
In a lovely, very DIY builder's tool.
So this is a corking gun. And so here's the thing, guys. I know it sounds stupid, but it's not stupid. When we started doing our books and ebooks and stuff like that, like in wet specimens, you use a corking gun. In taxidermy, you have to put like a scalpel blade on a scalpel. In other workshops that we're going to be doing, or other tutorials or books, you're going to have to use a Dremel or a drill. And there's nothing worse than being told, okay, use a corking gun, and then you don't know how on earth to set it up or how to use it. I didn't know how to use it either. So if you jump on our website for all our books that we have free ebooks of hardware tips. So if you go to Bunnings and you just get like a clear wet area silicone And sorry for the guys overseas, that's just a really mass-produced hardware store. You'll have one, no doubt. So this is just a clear silicone, and you can just get a simple caulking gun. But do you think that I could figure out how to use it in the beginning? Fuck no. So we just do the free hardware tips because it's helpful. You know, I didn't know how to use a Dremel or a power tool or, you know, this or that. So we just include that. So when we tell you to use a tool, you know what to do with it. So we're going to use the caulking gun now. Just a simple bathroom wet area silicone. And Kath, I know that you had a question today about your globes. I will do a little private video in the Dying to Know group tomorrow if you guys want to join, of how to get the air bubbles out of your globes. So when I say globes, I mean like this globe that's holding the four-legged chicken at the moment. This chicken has 4 legs. There's no air bubbles in this globe. So I'll teach you how to get the air bubbles out, and you'll be able to use this silicone technique on the bottom of your globe. So you can use the silicone if that's going to help you. So we'll be able to chat tomorrow. That's not a problem.
Yeah. So with this process here, we want to just get a really fine bead of silicone around that, the joint between the lid and the actual jar itself. So
I'm just gonna, Cam's trying to mouth something to me and I'm really bad at lip. What are you saying?
Do you want to turn the table?
I'd love you to turn the table. Thanks, Cam.
the third hand is always helpful in this environment.
So good. And I'll show you how cute she is afterwards. She's like the most beautiful. All right. So what we're going to do, this is not in the book. I might just dry this off a little bit more. And I love, in Australia, we call it like a lazy Susan. Is it, Catherine, I know that you're in another country. What do you call it? What do you call this spinny thing? Or people from other towns, what do you call it? A turntable or a lazy Susan?
Yeah.
What did you call it in New Zealand, Gavin?
I don't know. That's what you put cake on.
Cake. I used to eat Chinese food off of it.
Yeah.
I lived in a really small country town, Bundaberg. And yeah, it was like really fancy if every like 6 months we went to the Chinese restaurant and they had a lazy Susan in the middle and all your food would spin around. Yeah. And I thought that was really cool. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm spinning. You don't have that. You do have that thing in Ireland, for Christ's sake. So what I'm doing is I'm just laying the silicone in the gap between the lid and the glass vessel.
Yep.
And then what I like to do is I'll just spray it down with water and I'll smooth it into the gap wearing gloves. And Cam, if you want to keep turning. Oh my God, this is so good. I wish that you work with me every day. You're amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So Nat, using spraying water on obviously helps with making sure it doesn't get too dry too quickly on your finger, and it doesn't.
Yeah, and it just keeps it really smooth. This is not really a technique that I knew, but Karen, if you guys follow our Instagram and Facebook, you'll probably be familiar with Karen, who is one of my amazing staff members. And she started learning taxidermy with me 1.5 years ago, but she's just turned 60. She'd hate if I told you that. So we don't know that Karen's turned 60. But she spent 20 years being a hairdresser, and then she spent the last kind of 5 years flipping houses. So she knows everything about caulking guns and hair coloring and whatever. Like, she was meant to be a taxidermist and she was meant to do animal preservation. So she's actually the one that's like, oh, well, if we spray the silicone with water, then we can make it really smooth. And she only knows that because she's been flipping houses. And I thought that was really cool. So she's a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely. You know, I still quite, apparently, you know, was it Bronnie referred to it as the rotating Mary rather than this lazy Susan? I like the rotating Mary. That's much better. So yeah, there's been other comments around them being dipped in wax to form a seal. Absolutely, that will work.
Really difficult. You
Yeah.
try your luck. I'd love to see you do it successfully.
Yeah.
Almost impossible.
And so
and actually, if I can jump in there, all the scientific specimens that we're getting at the moment from schools and museums, they've all leached through the wax. But
yeah.
silicon, this stuff's used in your bathroom to make sure you're waterproofing. This will not leak.
Yeah.
So we'll do a nice rim and see how I'm really smoothing it out. And then we let this dry for 24 hours and then we'll do another one. And then none of this chemicals is leaching out. It's not coming out. It's not evaporating. This is sealed. This is what you use in your bathroom to make it watertight. The other thing you can do, if you've got any lumps, which this looks pretty smooth, I'm pretty happy with this, you can just get a paring knife when it's dry and you can come over the top and just take the top section off.
Yeah.
But this works perfectly for your globes and what have you, which I know, Catherine, was a big burning question of yours today.
Yeah. So one of the other points about sealing of them, if you see some of the old ones from probably the turn of the century, they would have used bitumen to seal them. And that was a traditional way to seal two bits of glass together. And that works amazingly well. It doesn't break down as well. And a key point around those wax ones, the lid and the jar have been made by a scientific glass blower. So the glass actually bind. They seal quite really tightly. So they will actually hold when you turn them upside down. And that's how they're able to dip them in wax and to make them look pretty, because otherwise you just pour wax on top, they won't look so good. So yeah, look, absolutely. There's many different ways of sealing them. Silicon's quick, cheap, and easy.
And really super effective.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think that's how we go through making our lovely little wet specimen. I hope we've covered off a few points and answered a few questions. There was one that kept popping up that I don't think I got to. I'm just going to go back and find it. Bear with me.
Does anyone else have any questions? I'm also completely off brand right now wearing my white shirt. And this is because this is our new COVID-19, the tour shirt, which is all the days that Melbourne was in lockdown. It's our rock tee. And I'm like repping our brand right now. So if you want one of them, they're in stock in our shop. That's why I'm wearing white.
Yeah. So one other question was there about if you find a specimen that's too far gone, can you work on it as a wet specimen? Well, you can. Formalin will halt that breakdown and decomposition, so you can end up with quite a interesting looking macabre sort of specimen in that context if it is half broken down. So that does actually work. I would just be really mindful about handling that, because there is an increased risk of, I guess, infectious risk for you, because you simply don't know what the bacteria is that's particularly active at the time you get it. And there's some nasty bacteria out there in the environment as well.
Another question came in about alcohol breaking down the silicon. So Kath raised this question. So the reason that the scientific jars are lovely is because they've kind of got that crystallized edge on the inside, which kind of traps the air. And you're actually sealing the top of that and not the inside of the jar. So technically, the alcohol is never really climbing up this beautiful gradient here. So if it didn't have this, yes, the alcohol could climb and it would break down your silicon. But when you're using, it almost looks like it's sandblasted. So when you're using a jar like this, it actually stops the alcohol from climbing, and you're sealing the top. You're not sealing the inside where the sandblasting is, where the alcohol can get to. So technically, no, your alcohol should never reach that point. And that's why, I guess that might be one of the reasons that scientific jars were designed that way, Gavin, to stop those things from mixing.
Yep, absolutely. And they actually form if they're well done, they'll actually form a
seal.
airtight and watertight seal.
Yeah.
So we had another question about what specimens work best for wet preservation. Basically,
Anything.
any specimen you can get your hands on that's in ideally the better condition they're in, and the sooner you get them, I guess the better the end specimen.
Yep.
So there's a question about fatty animals that make the alcohol go yellow. Yes, absolutely. I think this is referring back to something on Dying to Know Facebook page from memory. But fat is naturally yellow, and alcohol will naturally break it down and pull it out of the tissue over a period of time. I would expect it to last probably for up to 4 months or so. But as long as you keep changing that alcohol, eventually it will stop. It'll get
Yeah,
to
look, I want to weigh in on that as well, Gavin, because I think you remember when I started doing wet specimens, I'm like, I want to get them out to sell this weekend. And I'd only just fix them and stuff like that. I had no idea what I was doing. And it's important for us to also tell you that we didn't know what we were doing when we started. So not just fat, there was a really interesting situation that we had happened for almost half a year, where we were getting wet specimen puppies that had died. And what happens is the mother secretes a birthing fluid, and it's bright yellow. And so we would take our puppies through the different fixative stages, and then we'd put them in a jar, it'd look beautiful. And like 6 months later, the fluid would be completely yellow. And that's because like the what was inside the puppies was almost like an iodine color, like it was like a bright orange. And so I think one of the things, particularly if you want to sell wet specimens, because I know that a lot of you are like starting small businesses or being hobbyists or whatever, you cannot fix a specimen and then 2 weeks later sell it. You just can't. You need to fix it. Sorry, you need to inject it, fix it. Then you need to play the waiting game and see if it's going to leach, what it's going to do. We have some specimens like 6 months later, we're like, yeah, we need to change the color. And then eventually we get to a point where it stops leaching, it looks beautiful, but you can't rush this. This is organic matter, and it's got to do what it's got to do. And it could be because it's fatty, it could be because puppies have birthing fluid, which I didn't know about. So you really have to be patient. And that was hard for me because I don't know if you guys have noticed, I'm not a patient person.
Yeah, absolutely. So any more questions for the group? No?
Any other questions, guys?
Well,
thank you so much for coming. If this is your first Dying to Know, thank you. We just try to share the knowledge that we have and explain to you why. Also, I know that if you go to a lot of forums, and I say this every Dying to Know, there'll be a million people giving you a million reasons. We are constantly learning and trying new things, and we come to you with all the knowledge that we have accumulated and the reasons why we think this works best. But we're also learning new techniques and things all the time, and that's why we will release an intermediate book. So I think one of the most important things, if you are interested in the dyeing arts, is just being open-minded, trying new things and figuring out what works for you. That's really important. Wouldn't you agree, Gavin?
yeah, look, absolutely. I think a key point is I've been in the industry for over 20 years and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
You never stop learning in this environment. There's always something else going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think there's been, we could keep talking for days, couldn't we?
Yeah, we could.
There is one question here about putting a skull into wet preservation. I think
wow, never even thought of that.
Yeah, bones don't need any special treatment. If it's dried and cleaned up with tissue, then it should be just fine. So yeah, that would work. It's going to need quite a large display case, but that's okay. it could be quite an interesting piece. I've never done it before.
Could you put that into glycerin?
You could, but glycerin's really expensive.
Yeah. So you'd prefer to go in an alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be my preferences for an alcohol in that environment. Plus a glycerin is really, really heavy, especially
Yeah, it
once
is heavy.
it gets to that point. Whereas alcohol probably only weighs 2/3 for the same amount of volume.
Yeah.
So yeah, alcohol in that context is so much better again.
Yeah, that's a cool question. I mean, I'd love to see what you did with that. I've never even thought about doing that. And that's the cool thing about everyone bringing their own ideas to these groups. Any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to say goodnight, and we will send you an invitation tomorrow for Dying to Know to join the Facebook group so you can talk to us.
Yeah. So we had a couple of quick questions now, just before we do run. So would we follow all the steps for anything small, like under 5 centimeters, like fish or lizards? I would still try and inject smaller animals at least once. Have I ever?
I've still been following the 25% rule, Gavin.
Yeah, absolutely. 25% rule for everything, I think is really, really important. Have I ever done a nervous system like Gunter von Hagen's or like that rabbit? No, I'm not mad.
You got me doing a little bit of work on a plastinated piece, and that was dreadful. And I think I cut half the nervous system off.
Yep.
I know it was half a pig face. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I was trying to get I totally buggered that up.
It's all right. We modified it. It became a digestive system. Look, I think one of the key things that people probably need to understand is the dissection that goes into that rabbit dissection, for example, would be for me looking at somewhere around 400 hours. So that's 10 weeks of me working full time on it.
I don't reckon I should be selling them for $600. Like, when are you going to get them again? I might have to up the price.
They are phenomenal pieces of work. I've done one brain and spinal cord dissection removal, but it didn't include the limbs.
Yeah.
And that took me 6 months of coming and going to it.
Yeah.
That's highly detailed. You'd imagine every single vertebra you've got to open up, and then you've got to open up where all those little branches come out. It's exceptionally difficult. So yeah, I take my hat off to those people who did that work, because far out, it's phenomenal.
I agree. I didn't even know what it was when I looked at it. It's one of my favorite pieces in our studio. It's one of the pieces that I want to keep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important for people to understand and appreciate how much work goes into the process of preservation is one thing, but the dissection, the skills of the dissection that go on behind it is a whole new level that people don't really truly appreciate until you actually have to go and do it. It's quite hard actually to get your head around what 400 hours of work is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I totally agree. Anyone who's been even watching like Possum Bob on Instagram, if any of you are following that, like it's months of work. Preservation is months of work. So you've really got to be passionate about it. You got to be passionate about it, don't you? Any other questions, guys? If not, thank you so much for joining us. We'll email you tomorrow with access to the Dying to Know group. So people like Gavin, myself, other facilitators are on there. It's not kind of like a normal group where everyone's on there every day and we're responding to stuff, but we will definitely come back to you with answers, research. Tomorrow I'm going to film for you guys how to fill globes and get the liquids out. We want to use Dying to Know as a way for you to access mentors, and whatever your question is, we want to share our knowledge with you. That's what we're passionate about. So please join the group and we will help you wherever we can. And thank you so much for coming.